Is drug the real reason why Donald Trump wants to go to war with Venezuela? Or does he have an ulterior motive?
What you talking about, Willis?
This morning, Venezuela responding after U.S. forces seized an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. Video released by the Trump administration shows the moment U.S. Navy helicopters hovered above the tanker as heavily armed Coast Guard members rappelled to the deck.
We've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
This is the first time President Trump has overtly targeted Venezuela's oil exports.
Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserve in the world. So it's $14 trillion worth of oil, and it's a primary means of the regime funding. So if this is just the start, and of course, it was leaving to go to Cuba, which means it was likely full. So it is a significant escalation, but this might be the start of a campaign.
He ain't lying.
The president saying the U.S. may now confiscate the oil on board.
What do you say?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
So is it about the drugs coming out of Venezuela? Or is it about the oil?
Well, what is it?
President of Venezuela, Maduro, is basically saying that the escalating pressure by Donald Trump and the U.S. comes down to one thing. It comes down to their vast oil reserve.
What? Huh? Oil? Who said something about oil, bitch? You cooking?
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil?
So you're saying it's about oil? Why would we have to go after Venezuelan oil when we are one of the highest producing countries when it comes down to oil in the world?
If you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005. The US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela has gone basically to the floor, and that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care?
Yeah, why should we care about that Venezuelan oil?
Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil. And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it?
So all is not the same? Hey, I watched y'all on the Beverly Hillbillies.
And listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea.
All is all, if you ask me.
There are various different types of crude in different parts of the world.
I know you fucking lying, bitch.
But one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different.
So what are you saying?
And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production, but this is gloopy, super viscous stuff. Heavy oil, so heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also, the key thing here is, you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately, you still need it to go into, someone's car.
Okay, I see what you're saying, that we have 3 different types of oil. We have the light oil, we have the smoothie type oil, and we have the lumpy clump style of oil. But why would the U.S. wants to go to war with Venezuela, being that we are one of the highest producing oil countries in the world?
Basically, you need to process it, and that processing That happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff.
It can't be.
And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now.
What?
Okay, I hear what you're saying. You basically saying that the oil that we got coming out of the ground is clear or the green smoothie type. But I want to know, why does Donald Trump has to basically start a war with Venezuela? Because he says it's about drugs.
Even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it's ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to.
Yeah, I know y'all heard he said he's going to get into that third country that has that type of thick, type of clumpy oil that we want to get into our refineries. But that third country is Russia. And we all know that Trump is not going to invade Russia because he thinks him and Putin are like this. But we know that Putin is playing him like a goddamn puppet. So what does he do? Oh, I could get at Venezuela and nothing's going to happen. But little do he know that Venezuela and Putin are like this, all like a hand in a goddamn glove.
That's right.
Trump won't say shit about Putin. And you always ask yourself, why? I know the reason why. Because Putin and the Russians have that goddamn piss tape of Trump getting pissed on. Yes, I said it. He's not going to go after Russia or Putin because he don't want it to get out about him getting pissed on by a woman or a goddamn man. Allegedly, don't want to get sued. It's always been about the oil. It's always about the mighty dollar. You know, the way that we set up our refineries are basically set up for the heavy stuff, not the light stuff. And it's not cheap to try to build new refineries.
Ain't that the truth?
I always say this about Donald Trump. Everything is about money with him. And I can understand that you wanted to take the oil from Venezuela to help our economy, but speak the truth to the American people. Don't try to sugarcoat it and say it's one thing when actually it's another. You want to go after their oil because the refineries here in America are built for that type of gloopy, thick kind of oil. It's not built for what we're pulling out the ground right now. You know, but Donald Trump will have you believe that it's about the drug cartels. It's about the drugs coming across to the United States, the fentanyl. When you look at the actual numbers, fentanyl is not really coming from Venezuela.
Are you telling me the truth?
So what are you trying to prove? You're trying to start a war when you can negotiate to get more of that clumpy oil from Venezuela, but it's easier just to go in there and take it. And that's the type of guy Donald Trump is. He calls himself a negotiator when he's not. We see the type of people that he has in his cabinet. These are some of the dumbest people in the world.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But yet he thinks that they could get something done, even though he can't get it done, Mr. Sleepy Don. So let me know down in the comments what you think about the video and what the guy said. I believe he's telling the actual truth. It's never been about drugs when it came down to Venezuela. It's always been about their oil reserves.